is Darlene Williamson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Stroke Comeback Center in Oakton, Virginia. We are a community-based center where people can come and get communication services following a stroke. And Winston is on our board of directors, and he has asked me to do a little message about the difference between aphasia and apraxia, so that people that watch this can understand what aphasia is, but more importantly, what apraxia is, because there's a lot of confusion about exactly what is apraxia, not only in the general community, but also by people that have apraxia. Sometimes don't even realize that that's what they have. Aphasia and apraxia are really two very different presentations, and we need to separate out what they are. A person following a stroke, depending upon what section of the brain is damaged, can have aphasia, or they can have apraxia, or they can have a combination of both. And that's what we really need to speak to and be sure that people understand. So first, let me just talk a little bit about aphasia. And aphasia is the communication problem following a stroke that involves language, really the processing of language and the use of language. And we talk in terms of 4 modalities when we're talking about aphasia. 2 are incoming modalities and 2 are outgoing. So 2 are receiving information and 2 are giving information. We receive information visually or by reading, and auditorially or by hearing. So information comes in through reading and through listening, and that can be involved when you have aphasia. Or we can look at communication in terms of outgoing information, and we give information out through the modalities of writing and speaking. And of course, speaking tends to be the modality that most people talk about and most people worry about. But really all 4 modalities can be involved. Difficulty with information coming in, difficulty with information going out. I like to explain or define aphasia in terms of my desk drawer. And if you want one specific thing out of your desk drawer, you go to it, you search around, you might come up with it right away. You might search around in your desk and give up. You may never find it. You might search around in there and come up with the wrong thing. And that's an analogy for what happens in the language center of your brain after you've had a stroke. The words are just not able to be accessed the way they were before your stroke. And so in a very simplistic way, that's what aphasia is all about. It's that loss of words, not intellect, but loss of words and inability to kind of find the vocabulary, manipulate the vocabulary, use the vocabulary. And so when a person has aphasia and they're working on their communication, we really need to look at all 4 modalities and work on all 4 modalities, one modality helping another modality. Maybe if you can't speak the word the way you want to, maybe you can write it. If you're not able to understand when it comes in through your ear, you could read it. So we really deal with all 4 modalities to help improve the overall use of language. And that's aphasia. Now, the message that we specifically want to get out today is, how does that differ from apraxia, the word apraxia, which is a completely different presentation, but also follows an insult to the brain, either a brain injury or, in the case of the Stroke Comeback Center, it's a stroke. Apraxia, by definition, is the inability to execute what we call volitional movements for speech. It is not a muscle weakness. The muscles of the tongue, of the lips, are not necessarily diminished in any way. They're not weakened. They're not paralyzed. But there is a disconnect between the language pattern, the words, the thinking in the brain, and how to get the movements of your mouth, your lips, your tongue, your articulators to actually form that word. A person might know exactly what they want to say. They know the word, they have a picture of the word. It's just, how do I make my mouth do it? How do I get my mouth going to actually produce and say that word? And that's apraxia. Now, what happens so frequently is that aphasia is much more easily diagnosed. So, what do we do about apraxia? That's an important piece of all of this information. We are learning more and more about different techniques, different programs, different approaches that can help people with apraxia. What we do know is that it takes hours and hours and hours of effort to make the movements of your mouth come automatically, so that when the thoughts are in your brain and you want the muscles of your mouth to move, the ability to overcome that disconnect takes a great amount of effort. And unfortunately, the insurance system frequently doesn't pay for that long-term treatment. So that's why long-term aphasia groups, long-term communication centers are so very necessary to allow people the long-term involvement with speech-language pathologists and with other people who've had strokes, where they're able to get involved with some of these programs and practice those movements over and over and over and over again in order to overcome that disconnect. And then beyond that, there are newer and better and greater technology advances that we're experimenting with to help compensate when you have apraxia and you're not able to overcome that disconnect, to record mouth movements and follow the mouth movements on the screen, to allow technology like iPods and iPhones to allow that portability that you can take with you to help you communicate. So the main messages that we are trying to get across today are there's a big difference between aphasia and apraxia, and that apraxia need not be something that everyone has to say, oh well, I have apraxia, it doesn't get better. There are lots of good treatments that involve, again, a lot of time and a lot of effort, but we're making good advances both in overcoming the apraxia itself and in compensating for it. And so I hope in this short message you can take away the understanding and the differences and know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.